Marcus Wellington's black car rolled through the golden gates of his mother's estate at exactly 3 o'clock. He was tired. Business meetings always made him tired. But today was different. Today, something felt wrong. The gardens looked beautiful as always. Red roses bloomed along the walkway. The grass was cut perfectly, like a green carpet. The fountain splashed water into the afternoon air. Everything seemed normal. But then Marcus heard something that made his heart stop. A scream. His mother's scream. Marcus jumped out of his car before it even fully stopped. His expensive shoes slapped against the stone pathway. His navy suit jacket flew open as he ran. His briefcase fell somewhere behind him, forgotten. "Mom!" he shouted. He rounded the corner of the mansion and froze. There, on the back lawn, was his mother, Catherine Wellington. She sat in her wheelchair, the same wheelchair she had been in for 3 years. But that wasn't what made Marcus freeze. A young woman stood behind his mother, holding the garden hose. Cold water sprayed directly onto Catherine's head, soaking her gray hair, running down her face and shoulders. His mother's eyes were squeezed shut. Her hands gripped the wheelchair arm so tightly her knuckles turned white. "What are you doing?" Marcus roared. He ran forward, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. The young woman didn't even flinch. She was maybe 28 years old, wearing simple jeans and a white T-shirt. Her dark hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She looked at Marcus with calm brown eyes that showed no fear at all. "Stop that right now." Marcus grabbed for the hose. The woman stepped back, still holding it. The water kept spraying. "Mr. Wellington," she said quietly, "my name is Grace. I'm your mother's new caregiver. I don't care who you are. You're hurting her." Marcus finally grabbed the hose and twisted the nozzle. The water stopped. Silence fell over the garden, except for his mother's heavy breathing. Marcus dropped the hose and ran to his mother. "Mom, are you okay?" "I'm so sorry. I'll call the police." Marcus. His mother's voice was soft but firm. "Stop." He looked at her face. Water dripped from her chin. Her blouse was completely soaked, but her blue eyes were sharp, more awake than he'd seen them in months. "Mom!" "She was spraying you with cold water. That's abuse." That's enough, Marcus." Catherine reached up with one shaking hand and wiped water from her eyes. "Grace is helping me." Marcus felt like the world had turned upside down. "Helping you?" "Mom, you're sitting in freezing water. You could get sick. You could..." "Could what?" Grace's voice cut through his panic like a knife. She stood there, arms crossed, watching him. "Could she get paralyzed?" "She already is." The words hit Marcus like a slap. Anger boiled up in his chest, hot and fierce. "How dare you?" he said, his voice dangerously low. "I hired you to take care of my mother, to keep her comfortable, to help her with meals and medication, not to torture her with garden hoses. Is that what you think I'm doing?" Grace asked. She didn't look angry. She looked sad. "Mr. Wellington, how many doctors have you taken your mother to?" Marcus blinked. "What does that have to do with?" "How many?" Grace insisted. "I don't know. 15, 20, maybe more." Marcus ran his hand through his hair. It was true. After the accident 3 years ago, when his mother's car had crashed and damaged her spine, Marcus had spent millions. Specialists in Switzerland, experimental treatments in Japan, the best therapists in Germany, endless medications, exercises, machines. Nothing worked. The doctors all said the same thing. Catherine Wellington would never walk again. "And what did they all do?" Grace asked. "They tried everything." Marcus shouted. "Physical therapy, massages, warm baths, electrical stimulation, everything." "Exactly," Grace said softly. "They treated her body. They made her comfortable. They gave her warm baths and gentle massages and told her to rest." "So..." Marcus felt confused and angry and scared all at once. "So they treated her body, Mr. Wellington, but they never treated her mind." Catherine spoke up then, her voice stronger than before. "Marcus, sit down. Please, let her explain." Marcus looked at his mother, really looked at her. She was 62 years old. The accident had aged her, adding deep lines around her eyes and mouth. But right now, those eyes were bright, alert, almost excited. He slowly sat down on the stone bench near her wheelchair. Grace picked up a towel from a nearby table and gently dried Catherine's hair. Your mother's spine was damaged, yes, but not destroyed. The doctor saw the injury and decided she would never walk. They decided it was impossible. And then they treated her like someone who would never walk. I don't understand, Marcus said quietly. Your body believes what your mind tells it, Grace explained. For 3 years, everyone has treated your mother like she's broken, like she's fragile, like she needs to be kept warm and comfortable and still. So her body believed it. Her nerves believed it. Her muscles believed it. Marcus wanted to argue, but something in Grace's voice made him listen. But what if, Grace continued, what if we shocked the system? What if we woke up those sleeping nerves? What if we reminded her body that it's still alive? With cold water? Marcus couldn't keep the doubt from his voice. With cold water, Grace confirmed. With pressure, with challenge. Not torture, Mr. Wellington. Challenge. There's a difference. Catherine reached out and touched her son's hand. Marcus, I felt something. His heart skipped. What? When the cold water hit my legs, just for a second, I felt a tingling in my right foot. Marcus stared at his mother. For 3 years, she had felt nothing below her waist. Nothing. Doctors had tested her again and again. No sensation. No movement. Nothing. That's impossible, he whispered. Is it? Grace knelt down beside Catherine's wheelchair. Mr. Wellington, touch your mother's right leg, just above the knee. Marcus hesitated, then reached out. His hand shook as he placed it on his mother's leg through her wet skirt. Now press. Firmly, Grace instructed. He pressed. Mom, can you feel that? Catherine's eyes were closed, concentrating. Seconds passed. Marcus's hope began to die. Then his mother's eyes opened wide. Yes, she breathed. Yes, it's faint, but yes, I can feel your hand. Marcus pulled his hand back like he'd been burned. He looked at Grace, then at his mother, then back at Grace. This is impossible, he said again. But this time, his voice held something different. Not anger. Hope. Grace stood up, her expression serious. Mr. Wellington, your mother isn't broken. She's sleeping, and it's time to wake her up. But I need to know, are you brave enough to let me try? Even if it looks scary? Even if it seems impossible? Marcus looked at his mother. Catherine looked back at him. In her eyes, he saw something he hadn't seen in 3 long years. He saw fight. What do we do? Marcus asked. Grace smiled. We start by believing, and then we work. Every day, no matter how hard it gets, no matter how scared we are, we fight for every tiny sensation, every small movement, until those sleeping nerves wake up completely. Marcus took a deep breath. His whole world had just shifted. Everything the doctors said, everything he believed, it all hung in the balance now. Okay, he said finally. Show me. Grace nodded. She picked up the hose again, and the real work began. The next morning, Marcus arrived at his mother's estate before sunrise. He hadn't slept all night. Questions spun through his mind like a storm. What if Grace was wrong? What if his mother got hurt? What if this tiny spark of hope turned into crushing disappointment? But what if it worked? He found Grace in the garden, setting up strange equipment. A large basin filled with ice water. Towels stacked neatly on a table. Some kind of rubber mat spread on the grass. You're early, Grace said without looking up. I couldn't sleep, Marcus admitted. Grace, I need to know something. Why are you doing this? What makes you so sure this will work? Grace stopped arranging towels and looked at him. In the early morning light, Marcus saw something in her eyes. Something old and painful. Because someone did it for me, she said quietly. Before Marcus could ask what she meant, the back door opened. Catherine's nurse, Mrs. Henderson, wheeled his mother outside. Catherine wore a bathing suit under a thick robe. Her face looked determined but scared. "I'm ready," Catherine announced. Grace smiled warmly. "Good, because today we're going to wake up your legs." Marcus watched as Grace helped his mother out of the wheelchair and onto a special chair next to the ice water basin. His stomach twisted with worry. "This will be very cold," Grace warned. "Your body will want to fight it." "That's good. We want your body to fight. We want those nerves to scream, 'Hey, something's happening down here.'" Catherine nodded. "I understand." "Mom, are you sure about this?" Marcus asked. His voice cracked. Catherine looked at her son. "Marcus, for 3 years, I've sat in that wheelchair feeling nothing. Nothing at all. Yesterday, for just a moment, I felt your hand. That moment was worth whatever pain comes next." Marcus's eyes burned with tears, but he blinked them away. Grace knelt beside Catherine. "We're going to lower your feet into this ice water for 30 seconds. It will hurt, but pain means your nerves are waking up. Pain means you're alive. Can you be brave?" "I can try," Catherine whispered. Grace and Mrs. Henderson carefully lifted Catherine's legs. Slowly, they lowered her feet into the basin of ice water. Catherine gasped. Her whole body went rigid. Her hands gripped the chair arms so hard Marcus thought she might break them. "Breathe," Grace said calmly. "Count with me. 1, 2, 3. Catherine's face was pale. Tears ran down her cheeks. Marcus wanted to stop this. Every instinct in his body screamed to pull his mother away from the pain. But then he heard it. 4, 5, 6. His mother was counting. Her voice was shaky, but she was counting. Grace continued. "Excellent, Catherine. You're doing amazing. Keep breathing. 15, 16, 17. Marcus held his breath. The seconds felt like hours. 28, 29, 30. Grace quickly lifted Catherine's feet from the ice water and wrapped them in warm towels. "You did it. You were so brave." Catherine was breathing hard, like she'd run a race. But she was also smiling. "I felt them," she said, wonder filling her voice. "Grace, I felt my feet. They were freezing. They hurt. I could feel them." Marcus felt his knees go weak. He sat down hard on the grass. "You could feel them?" "Every second." Catherine laughed and cried at the same time. "It hurt so much, but Marcus, I could feel them." For the next hour, Grace worked with Catherine. After the ice water woke up the nerves, she massaged Catherine's legs with firm pressure. Not gentle, firm, strong, demanding the muscles remember what they used to do. Then came the hardest part. "Now," Grace said, "we're going to stand." Marcus jumped up. "Stand? Grace, she can't." "She can try," Grace interrupted. "Catherine, are you willing to try?" Catherine looked down at her legs. They had betrayed her for 3 years. They had refused to work, to move, to hold her up. Fear flashed across her face. But then she lifted her chin. "Yes, I want to try." Grace positioned herself on one side of Catherine. Mrs. Henderson stood on the other side. Marcus rushed forward to help. "On 3, Grace instructed. "We're going to lift you up, but Catherine, I need you to try. Try to push with your legs. Even if nothing happens, I need you to try with everything you have. Understand?" Catherine nodded. 1, 2, 3. They lifted. Catherine's face scrunched up with effort. Marcus could see her straining, fighting, trying with every bit of strength she had. Nothing happened. Her legs hung limp. "Again," Grace said firmly. "Don't give up. Again. 1, 2, 3. They lifted. Catherine grunted with effort. Still nothing. Marcus felt hope dying in his chest. It had been a dream. A beautiful, cruel dream. "Again," Grace commanded. "You felt your feet in that ice water, Catherine. Those nerves are awake. Make them work. 1, 2, 3. They lifted, and Catherine's right leg trembled. Just a tremor, just the tiniest shake. But it was something. Did you see that? Grace shouted. "Your leg moved. Do it again. Push." I can't." Catherine gasped. "Yes, you can." Grace's voice was fierce now, like a warrior. You are not broken. You are not defeated. Your body is waking up. Now push. Catherine screamed. It was a sound Marcus had never heard from his mother. Pure effort, pure determination, pure refusal to give up. Her right leg straightened. Not much, maybe just a few inches. But it straightened. Marcus nearly dropped his mother in shock. Mrs. Henderson gasped. Grace was grinning like she'd just won a championship. Again! Grace shouted. They lowered Catherine slightly, then prepared to lift again. This time, when they counted to 3, both of Catherine's legs trembled. Both of them tried to push. For 10 seconds, Catherine Wellington stood. Her legs shook like leaves in a hurricane. Grace and Mrs. Henderson and Marcus held most of her weight, but her legs were straight. Her feet were flat on the ground. She was standing. I'm standing, Catherine whispered. Then louder, I'm standing. Marcus, I'm standing. Marcus couldn't speak. Tears poured down his face. His mother who doctors said would never walk again, was standing. They carefully lowered her back into the wheelchair. Catherine collapsed into it, exhausted. Her whole body shook. Sweat covered her face despite the cool morning air. But she was smiling bigger than Marcus had seen in 3 years. Grace knelt beside her. That was incredible. Tomorrow we'll do it again. And the day after that. And the day after that. Each day, you'll stand a little longer. Your legs will get a little stronger. Your nerves will wake up a little more. How long? Catherine asked, breathless. How long until I can walk? Grace was quiet for a moment. I don't know. Maybe weeks. Maybe months. Maybe it won't happen at all. Marcus's heart sank, but Grace continued. Or maybe, if you're brave enough to keep trying, if you're strong enough to keep fighting even when it hurts, even when you want to give up, maybe you'll walk again. Catherine reached out and grabbed Grace's hand. I'll do it, whatever it takes. I'll do it. Grace squeezed back. I know you will. Marcus looked at this young woman who had walked into their lives just yesterday. This stranger who believed when doctors said it was impossible. This person who saw strength where everyone else saw brokenness. Grace, he said softly. Thank you. She looked up at him. Don't thank me yet, Mr. Wellington. The real work is just beginning. This will be the hardest thing your mother has ever done. There will be days she cries. Days she wants to quit. Days when nothing seems to work. You need to be ready for that. Both of you. Marcus looked at his mother. Catherine looked back at him. We're ready, they said together. The sun rose higher over the garden. A new day had begun, and with it, a new battle. The battle to walk again. For months passed. For months of ice water and tears. 4 months of standing and falling. For months of pain and hope mixed together like medicine that tastes terrible but makes you better. Marcus came to the estate every single day. He watched his mother suffer. He watched her cry. He watched her scream that she wanted to give up. But he also watched her stand a little longer each day. On day 12, Catherine stood for 30 seconds without help. On day 25, she took her first step. Just one. Her leg dragged forward 6 inches before she collapsed into Grace's arms, sobbing with joy. On day 43, she walked 3 steps before her legs gave out. On day 61, she made it across a rubber mat, 10 whole steps. But it wasn't easy. Nothing about it was easy. There were terrible days. Days when Catherine's legs wouldn't move at all, no matter how hard she tried. Days when she sat in her wheelchair and cried, I can't do this anymore. It's too hard. I'm too old. I'm too broken. On those days, Grace sat beside her and said quietly, You're not broken. You're fighting. And fighters don't give up. Marcus learned to be strong for his mother. When she wanted to quit, he reminded her of that first day when she felt the ice water. When she said it was impossible, he reminded her that doctors said she'd never stand. But she had. She'd done the impossible already. Mrs. Henderson became Catherine's biggest cheerleader. She'd clap and shout encouragement during every session. Come on, Mrs. Wellington. You've got this. Show those legs who's boss. But through it all, Grace was a quiet force that kept them going. She never let Catherine rest too much. She never let Marcus's fear stop the progress. She never accepted excuses. The body will do what the mind believes, she said over and over. So believe harder. One evening, after a particularly hard session, Marcus found Grace sitting alone in the garden. She looked tired, more tired than he'd ever seen her. "Grace," he said, sitting beside her on the stone bench, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "That first day, you said someone did this for you. What did you mean?" Grace was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood up and lifted her shirt slightly, showing her lower back. A long, jagged scar ran along her spine. Marcus gasped. "You were?" "Paralyzed," Grace finished. 5 years ago. Car accident, just like your mother. I was 23 years old, and doctor said I'd never walk again. But you're walking now. You're running. I'm alive," Grace said softly, "because a physical therapist in a small village refused to give up on me. Everyone else treated me like I was fragile, like I was broken, but he treated me like I was strong. He used cold water, pressure, challenge. He made me fight for every sensation, every movement. It took me 8 months, but I walked again." Tears filled Marcus's eyes. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because it's not about me," Grace said. "It's about your mother, about her journey, about her strength." She smiled. "But now you know why I believe so hard. I've been where she is. I know the pain. I know the doubt. But I also know the victory." Marcus stood up and hugged Grace. "Thank you. Thank you for not giving up on her. For not giving up on us." Grace hugged him back. "She's the one doing the hard work. I'm just the guide." The breakthrough came on day 107. It was a Sunday morning. The garden smelled like roses and fresh-cut grass. Birds sang in the trees. The fountain splashed peacefully. Grace had set up a pathway through the garden. Small flags marked every 5 feet. The goal was simple. Walk from the back door to the fountain. 25 feet. 25 feet. That might as well have been 1,000 miles. Catherine stood at the starting point, holding a wooden cane that Marcus had bought her. Her legs trembled. Her hands shook. But her eyes were determined. "I'm ready," she said. Marcus stood near the fountain, his phone ready to record. Mrs. Henderson stood nearby with a wheelchair, just in case. Grace walked beside Catherine, close enough to catch her, but far enough to let her try alone. "Whenever you're ready," Grace said quietly. Catherine took a deep breath. She lifted the cane. She moved her right foot forward, then her left. Step, step. Her legs wobbled. The cane shook in her hand. Sweat appeared on her forehead, but she kept walking. Step, step, step. Past the first flag. 5 feet. Marcus held his breath. His heart pounded so hard he thought it might explode. Step, step, step. Past the second flag. 10 feet. Catherine's face was tight with concentration. Every movement was slow, careful, deliberate, but she was moving, on her own, without anyone holding her. Step, step, step. 15 feet. "You're doing it, Mom," Marcus shouted. "You're really doing it." Catherine didn't answer. She couldn't spare the energy for words. Every bit of her focus went into her legs. Left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. 20 feet. Grace walked silently beside her, tears streaming down her face. Mrs. Henderson had both hands over her mouth, crying and smiling at the same time. Just 5 more feet. Catherine's right leg started to buckle. She wobbled. Marcus lurched forward, but Grace held up her hand, stopping him. "You've got this, Catherine," Grace said firmly. 5 more feet. You can do it. Catherine gritted her teeth. Her legs straightened. Step. 4 feet left. Step. 3 feet. Step. 2 feet. Step. Catherine Wellington reached out and touched the fountain. She had walked 25 feet. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then Catherine turned around, tears pouring down her face, and whispered, "I did it." Marcus ran to his mother and wrapped his arms around her, holding her up as she cried into his shoulder. "You did it. Mom, you walked. You actually walked. Mrs. Henderson joined the hug, laughing and crying at the same time. Grace stood back, watching with a smile that lit up her whole face. Catherine pulled back and looked at Grace. I couldn't have done this without you. You gave me my life back. Grace shook her head. No, you gave yourself your life back. I just showed you the way. The video Marcus recorded that day went viral. Millions of people watched Catherine Wellington walk through her garden with a cane. Comments poured in from all over the world. This gave me hope. If she can do it, maybe I can too. Never give up. Never stop believing. Marcus hired Grace as a full-time rehabilitation specialist. She started working with other people the doctors had given up on. One by one, she taught them the same lesson. You're not broken. You're just sleeping. Wake up. Fight. Believe. Catherine kept working every day. By month 6, she could walk around her entire garden without stopping. By month 8, she walked down to the mailbox and back. By month 10, she threw away the cane and walked on her own. The wheelchair sat in the garage, gathering dust. A reminder of what was, but no longer is. On the anniversary of that first day, the day Marcus found Grace spraying his mother with a hose, the family gathered in the garden. Catherine walked to the fountain and back without help. Then she stood in front of Grace and took her hands. You taught me that miracles aren't magic, Catherine said. They're courage. They're work. They're refusing to accept what everyone says is impossible. Grace smiled. And you taught me that my story could help others, that my pain had purpose. Marcus raised his glass. To Grace. To Mom. To never giving up. They toasted as the sun set over the garden, painting the sky orange and pink and gold. Catherine Wellington had been told she would never walk again, but she did, because one young woman believed when no one else did, because one mother fought when everyone said to rest, because one family chose hope over despair. The doctors were wrong, and Catherine was walking. If this story touched your heart, if it gave you hope, if it made you believe in second chances, hit that like button. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that impossible things can become possible. And subscribe so you never miss stories that remind you how strong the human spirit really is. Your move. Will you choose to believe? Will you choose to fight? Will you choose to walk toward what everyone says you can't reach? The choice is yours. But remember, you're not broken. You're just waiting to wake up. See you in the next story. Now go out there and prove the impossible wrong.